Well, Utah fans, good evening and welcome in. Final coaches show of the season. Where does time go? I don't like that things fly by so fast, but here we are. Final week of the regular season. Utah hosting USC on Thursday night. I think that's a 7:30 tip-off. We'll confirm that with Larry here in just a minute. And at UCLA on Saturday for Senior Day, and then a week from now, we'll be on the road in Las Vegas for the Pac-12 basketball tournament. We appreciate you listening in and watching all season long. Listening in, of course, on our flagship radio home, ESPN 700, and watching in on the YouTube channel from Utah Athletics. I'm Bill Riley. Larry Krystkowiak with me here tonight. Show brought to you by Smith's, and for the next hour, we'll talk about the final week of the regular season, what's at stake, the seniors, the Pac-12 tournament, all of that stuff with you guys and for you guys here on the Smith's Coaches Show tonight from the basketball facility, where if we look out to the west, the sun is still up. That means
we've got minutes.
Yeah, we do. That means we are way into this season. Can you believe we're at our last show?
I can't. I honestly can't. And I think I probably said the same thing every year. But it's, it's just it's a grind. It's intense, and I think sometimes those things go real fast once they're over.
Yeah.
Like you talk about. I think we mentioned last week. It's like raising kids.
Yeah.
The days seem like they take forever, but the years fly by. So
that's exactly right. And you've raised a team this year. You've raised a bunch of kids. That's a different team. It's a different Utah basketball team than the one we saw at the beginning of this season. That team we saw with the night with the Runnin' Utes and the night with Utah basketball. You got a different group and a better group now.
Yeah. No, everybody's made good progress, and it's all coming to a head. We had a terrific team meeting. Watched some film from Colorado and met for about an hour, cut into our practice time a little bit, but threw a bunch of stuff on the table, and I think we got some things sorted out. I'd have to kill you if I told you what a lot of them are, but maybe we'll talk about it after the season.
All right, that sounds good. We'll talk about it over an ice-cold beer after the season, but for now, a Budweiser, proud sponsor of the Coaches Show and of Utah Athletics. But for now, tell me what you can tell me coming off that Colorado game on Saturday.
Well, it really comes down to just playing harder. That was the case. I thought Colorado, from start to finish, they got out to an 8-0 start. Kind of punched us in the mouth when we had chances to finish inside. We didn't. And, they guarded us really well, just like we knew that they would. And we didn't finish plays well. That was the big thing. Offensively, getting to the paint, having a chance to finish a play, we didn't do it. Defensively, miss block out, they pass it out, we scramble kind of half-heartedly, and each time that happened, it hurt us, and we came up on the short end.
They guarded you well. You guys did have a lot of open looks that didn't go down
we
as
did.
Well. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you have to make those, but
right.
There's a little bit about karma with the game. To me, if you're really playing a little bit harder, I noticed they played harder through and through, and they got the bounces, and I can't tell you how many shots we had from three that were in and out, really good looks, and it gets back to us just playing a lot harder and letting it fly. At this point in the season, Bill, if we don't all take another step and shift into another gear and play a lot harder, we aren't going to be able to cut down those nets. I know that. That's the only way we're going to the NCAA tournament.
Well, that's exactly right. You know that, and the guys know that too.
And that's our goal.
Yeah.
And we want to get there, and if we don't start playing a heck of a lot harder and making our own breaks, then it's not going to be fulfilled.
It is an attainable goal. The Pac-12 conference is open. Washington's very good, but they're not an unbeatable team. They got pushed to the limit, beat by Cal, pushed to the limit by Stanford. This conference tournament, Larry, is open, and you know this. But it's going to take a team that's going to have to play hard for 3 nights, right? Whether that's your team or ASU or Colorado or Washington, whoever wins in Vegas is going to be a team that plays well and plays hard for 3 nights.
Well, that's what I told our guys. Begin with the end in mind, right? Okay, somebody's cutting the nets down, and I don't know who it's going to be. There's the odds-on favor to be Washington, but they have other fish to fry. They're probably in the tournament. There's going to be a little bit of an edge for us to get in there and compete. And who's that team? Who's that team going to be? We're going to be watching them cut the nets down, and it's going to be one of those deals where you go, what did they do to put it together? And it's going to be a team that I'll guarantee you for 3 or 4 nights plays their butts off every night.
When you had that team meeting with your guys, did you feel like that message sunk in with them? Do you feel like that? Because you've got a few guys. Parker's been through it before. Cedric's been through it before. They know what a conference tournament is. Some of these other guys have been through AAU tournaments, but that's not the same as playing in a conference tournament in college basketball. Did you get a sense that that message sunk in, that they know that they're going to have to play hard down the stretch?
Yeah, we didn't get into the tournament a whole lot. That was just kind of the end, but it was all about things that we could control. We're all going to sign this contract to be all in.
Yeah.
And we went around the room and guys talked about what their definition was of being all in. And when guys didn't say the right thing, I would give them some suggestions about what that might mean, So it was good. We threw that stuff around. I think our guys understand it. The kids that play really hard and are tough kids are going to have to be more talented. And the kids that are really talented that maybe don't play hard enough are going to have to
play harder.
So it's like, let's figure out a way to do what we're not doing and bring something to the table.
Well, Coach, we were just over spring football began today. Coach Witt's got that saying up in his facility. You're either all in or you're in the way. And that's what it's going to have to be down the stretch for not just your team, but for a lot of teams in college basketball. You've got to be all in at this time of year. And really, your tournament begins this week because you guys want to get that top 4 seed. But to get that top 4 seed, you're going to have to take care of business at home against SC and UCLA.
Yeah, and 2 of the best offensive teams, first and third in our conference in offense. So if you're not ready to guard and play really hard, then you're going to, those teams are going to be hard for us to beat. So it's right in front of us, man.
So you've got a week of practice, and I know you guys have dialed it back a little bit to save legs and things like that. What's the approach this week, knowing you've got the Thursday night game at about 8 o'clock, and then you come back with senior day on Saturday at 5? Is it a regular standard week for you guys?
Yeah, with focus on some different things. This was about the Utes today. We didn't talk about anybody that we were playing in the future. There's a lot of things within our system that we needed to fix, that we can't win unless we fix them. And I thought in an hour and 20 minutes today, we went really hard, and it was spirited, and so there'll be some more prep coming up. But again, let's get down to the brass tacks. A lot of times you don't need as much of a scouting report if we'll just play a little bit harder. And I think they heard that message today.
Well, and the scouting report's a little bit easier, too, because you did see these guys already. It may have been a month ago, but you saw them already. So, and they're familiar with these guys. You beat them twice down in Southern California, beat UCLA and then USC, or vice versa.
Yeah. No, you're right. And so there's less to talk about and more to probably get out and do.
We talked about at the very beginning of the show today, this team, we're at the end of the year, and the team that you're seeing on the floor this week is not the same team that began practices in September and October. If I ask you to kind of look back on this season, where do you think this team's come the furthest? What aspect of the game do you think this team's come the furthest from since mid-October?
Well, if you look statistically, I think effective field goal percentage, we might be first in the conference.
Yeah.
And we weren't always playing as a team, early on. If you would have told me we'd be leading in a lot of the three-point statistics, I would have not suggested that. But, that involves guys drawing and kicking and making each other better. I think we've really grown in that area. But it's not a long list in terms of where we've gotten better. And it's right on what we're talking about.
Right.
I'd like to talk to you in a couple weeks. I know we don't have any more of these shows, but in 2 weeks, I'd like to say, man, we really figured out how hard we had to play, and getting dialed in. And that's statistically, defensively, that's the numbers that are lacking. Rebounding, like Colorado, we out-rebounded them. That was terrific. But there's some areas that we need to fix defensively.
Well, you and I hopefully will have a number of more pregame conversations.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, we can talk about some of those things in our pregame conversations. Yep. We won't be able to do it from this spot in this office, but we'll be able to do it coming up on some pregame conversations. We'll take our first time out here on the Coaches Show. We'll come back, talk a little bit about USC straight ahead. This is Utah Basketball and the Coaches Show from Learfield, IMG College. It started fine. What happened? presented by Smith's. As always, final coaches show of the season here tonight from the basketball offices. And USC coming in this week. They're the first game on Thursday night. And USC and UCLA are from a talent standpoint, among two of the most talented teams in the league. Kind of goes back to what you were saying about your own team earlier. Teams that play hard and they match that talent level are usually really, really good. Sometimes teams will play hard, don't have a lot of talent. Sometimes teams will have a lot of talent but don't play hard. But USC, when they do play hard with that talent, are very, very difficult. But you guys got them down at their place. What do you remember about that first game?
Well, no, we were good offensively, there. And I looked at the tape this morning. We've had a little bit of a different mentality, I think, when we get out on the road. Our guys play hard. And it's the other part about playing hard is, and I thought at Colorado we played hard for 85% of the game. And the thing is, to be good on the road, you've got to, it was those letdowns to where it wasn't consistent. Right. So it's not just like we did a nice job defensively, but it was just finishing plays, extra efforts. And I asked our guys today, because if you guys asked to be taken out of the game, whether you think you're hitting the wall at the end of the season or do we need to do more conditioning? And they mentioned that they noticed the altitude, and even though we think it's high here, I think it's close to 2,000 more feet maybe in Boulder.
It's about 1,500, yeah.
Yeah, and our guys thought it hit them. So it's just consistent and, multiple effort plays offensively and defensively going down the stretch, because we all know what we're running. It's probably going to be the play after the play. Right. And have the energy to finish those.
What stands out about USC when you look at them? They've got a lot of offensive firepower. Benny Boatwright's very, very good. Krystkowiak is having a terrific year. Jonah Matthews, a guy you recruited pretty heavily, is one of the best shooters, and he may be a good two-way player, too. When he wants to play defense, he's not a bad defender either.
No, they're solid. If you look at our league numbers, offensively or defensively, they're third or fourth. So they're number one in assist to turnovers. They don't turn the ball over. And they're number one in assists. So they're doing a bunch of things that are right. And you see our conference right now. There's 8 teams that either have 8 or 9 wins.
Right.
Third through whatever it is, 8th or 9th, is an 8 team or a 9 and 7 team. So the margin is pretty slim. I think if you look back at a few games, it's easy for us to be 10 wins, but also there's been close games where we could be down to 6. So even though UCLA and USC on paper aren't in the elite category, they're really good basketball teams.
Yeah, they play hard, and they will go up and down the floor. There's an interesting guy for USC, Kevin Porter, who has been in and out of the lineup for them. He's had some injuries and some off-court stuff. He's had some really good games. Didn't do a whole lot against you guys when you were down there in L.A., but he is a talent.
Yeah, and it's like what we talk about all the time. It's hard to be a freshman.
Yeah.
There's a lot of expectations on kids, and they come in and, you don't realize how hard it is. So he's in that freshman learning curve, and he's like a lot of freshmen right now are waking up and figuring some things out. So he's, they've got him projected like in the middle of the first round somewhere, if I read it correctly. And that was last time we played him, so I don't know what's changed in that. But, supremely talented, and as are all the dudes coming in both games Thursday, Saturday.
There's a bunch of talent for both these teams. Both Southern California and UCLA have recruited a monstrous amount of talent the last few years. What was it that you guys did really well in that game the first time around? I think the final score was 77-70.
77-70.
But what was it you felt like you guys really did well?
Well, we did a good job. This is a team that's made 62 threes in their last 5 games. That's over 12 a game. And Benny Boatwright's been on fire. And Jonah Matthews, as you mentioned, those guys. And we did a really good job of identifying where Boatwright was and not letting him get threes off. Also at that time, I think Krystkowiak was second in scoring. That was the 4-5 combo in that game that no team we've faced that had their 2 leading scorers be their 4 and their 5. And I thought we did a pretty good job. Jace did a nice job battling him, and we've got to keep him off the 3-point line, and that's what we did in that game, USC, to give ourselves a chance. And we were good offensively. We moved the ball. We had multiple guys in double figures, and we weren't dependent necessarily on Cedric, to get things done. So our guys were focused. We've got some Southern Cal guys, and I think they were motivated to get back home and play in that environment. And now we have to make sure we're equally as motivated to play in the Huntsman Center.
That'll be Thursday night, 8 o'clock. maybe a 7:30 tip-off at the Huntsman Center. Get there early, make some noise, and create a good home court advantage. What?
Senior weekend.
It is senior weekend. It's the last chance for you guys to see Parker Van Dyke, Cedric Bearfield, Bo Rydalch, and Novak will be honored as well. He'll be a senior, fifth-year senior, 1 year with you guys.
We've got fifth-year seniors, or Parker's a sixth-year senior.
It's true.
Because he played Mission and had him, and then you've got Novak, who came and lent his duties for a year. So different ways to skin a senior, I guess.
Yeah, don't be skinning anybody. Let's not skin anybody, especially if they play well. But that'll be Thursday night at 8 o'clock against USC. Andy Enfield's team coming in, and they've got a lot to play for still. They, like you guys,
we all do.
Everybody really from about 8 to number 3, 9 to number 3 are still playing for a lot. There's still a handful of teams that are in contention for that bye.
Yeah, and really at this point in the season, you don't need that carrot dangled in front of you to be playing hard.
Right.
They're all.
Well, in theory, you shouldn't need that carrot dangled in front of you.
Yeah, but that's the mentality. Is let's forget about matchups and seeding and all that stuff. Let's just finish the season off, with the pedal to the metal and make the most of it. Those numbers will take care of themselves.
I'm going to ask you about your seniors on senior night, especially the guys that you've had here for quite some time. We'll do that coming up, but in the next segment, we'll pass out our weekly awards, our player of the week, and our sub of the week. Only had one game last week. We'll do that coming up straight ahead. Our game this week being brought to you by our friends at America First Credit Union. They'll be a big sponsor of the game coming up on Saturday. And the other big sponsor of the game coming up is going to be our friends at Larry H. Miller. If you need a car, go to LHMauto.com. It's as easy as click it, get it, and drive it. Larry H. Miller dealerships driven by you. We'll come back on the other side, pass out our weekly awards on our final coaches show right here from Learfield IMG College. Good finish on the and one there by Novak Topalovic. That's our drive of the game. You can customize your own road, Utah fans, in the school colors. To enter and for official rules, just simply go to nissanusa.com/rogue sweepstakes. No purchase necessary. Contest ends 3/31/19. Need a few more of those and ones from Mr. Topalovic, and the big guys finish around that rim this week. They'll have their hands full. Moses Brown from UCLA, a good rim protector, and of course, you got Krystkowiak as well from UCLA or from USC. So you'll see a couple of good big men this weekend.
Yeah, they play in the post.
Yeah.
UCLA, I think, is maybe the second tallest team in the country. You know, they look like an NBA squad when you're out there warming up. And Moses Brown didn't play the first go-round.
Well, he played the last 8 seconds.
I'm sorry, you're right.
But he didn't play the first 39 minutes against you guys.
He changes the game.
Yeah.
So we've got to strap on the old chin strap and be ready for some interior presence. And I'm challenging our guys this week. We're gonna figure it out, doing a better job of guarding and scoring the ball down there.
And Krystkowiak too, to Utah's benefit, but not USC's. He got into foul trouble early against you guys down there. He got an early foul, and then he got a flagrant one or something, swinging some elbows or something like that. So he missed a good deal of the first half against you guys. Played a little bit in the second half, though.
Yeah, and that seems to be the season as you go with, there's been injuries, there's been foul trouble. You think about McKinley Wright, where we missed him the first go-round, and no Moses Brown, and, that's part of the nature of a team is you get 2 quick fouls. I talked to our team about that. Maybe some guys don't feel like they're a huge part of the rotation, but if you look at history at the end of a season and getting into a Pac-12 tournament, you're 2 fouls away from somebody stepping up and needing to give you 15 straight minutes. So everybody's got to stay in the fight, and that's a big thing for our team right now to get ready to close it out, and know different guys are going to be counted on. I remember Dallin Bashinsky in the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Where he's, Jakob gets in foul trouble, and if we don't have Dallin's 14 points and I think 8 rebounds, you don't beat Georgetown. You don't go to a Sweet 16. So there's countless examples of that.
Well, it's this time of year. We always remember. You don't ever remember the guy that stepped up in December or January in college basketball and helped his team. There's plenty of those guys.
Yeah.
You remember the guys in March.
Yeah.
March is where the madness and the memories, whether it's a conference tournament or an NCAA tournament, that's where you remember that stuff.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you talk to countless people that maybe don't watch a whole lot of college basketball throughout the year, but once March hits, I think a lot of people chime in and the players step up and make a name for themselves. It's always backcourts are always a big part of it. We've got 2 seniors, that need to kind of carry us to that spot, and so yeah, it's an exciting time of year. I love it.
I think they call those one shining moments is what they call those this time of year. All right, we need to pass out Player of the Week and Sub of the Week awards. You only had the one game. So start wherever you want to start.
Yeah, to be honest, we didn't get a whole lot off the bench.
Right.
And I saw that on the highlight, Talacat, and we'd been getting some good punch off the bench. Jace Johnson was incredible from a rebounding perspective and a defensive perspective. He didn't make many mistakes, graded out like as good as anybody, and made some big time plays, protect the ball. Walls at the rim, real physical. 13 boards.
3 blocks.
We switched a couple pick and rolls, and he kept their point, McKinley right in front of him. So he was dialed in. But we just need more. Need more from everybody. Got to count on everybody. But Jace, in my mind, is the player of the game and the sub of the game. Can I do that?
Yeah, sure. It's your show.
Perfect.
Do whatever you want to do. So our player of the week, Jace Johnson, 13 rebounds, had the 1 reverse bucket, and of course he had the 3 big block shots. You heard a couple of those coming in. Our player of the week is brought to you by University of Utah Health. They've got 16 neighborhood health centers for your family's health. Find them online at uofuhealth.org. And might as well give Jace that sub, too, the Subway sub of the week. He did a little bit of everything. So go in and get a little bit of everything on your Subway sub or signature wrap at Subway. Stop by and see them today and maybe win yourself a VIP experience from the Utah Jazz. Give us an update. Timmy Allen was so happy to be back on the floor the other night. How's his back? Is he dealing? Sometimes, as you know, as a guy with a bad back, it's not that night, but maybe the next day or the day after a game where it can be bothering you. How's Timmy doing?
Yeah, all indications he was great in practice, and he hasn't mentioned anything. He's communicated to our training staff that he feels good. So he's charged up. He had that extra week. He's, just getting a little rust off.
Yep.
It sounds easy to miss a week, but he probably missed 10 days of live action, missed a week of games, and missed some practices.
He said after the game, we talked to him after the game, he said he could feel it a little bit in his conditioning.
Yeah.
He said, when you miss that kind of time.
You can't simulate that.
Yeah, you can't simulate it. He goes, I gotta get my wind back to me, but he said,
Yeah.
I'll be okay.
Yeah, and it didn't help that we were in Colorado.
Right.
But, we aren't getting in a lot better shape at this point. Some of this is going to be between your ears. If you can push through it, or if you play so hard that you need to ask to come out, those are all good things, but it's no time to really have much in the reserve anyway. Just let it all fly.
So those are our players of the week here on the Coaches Show. We're into the final half hour. When we come back, it's Senior Day on Saturday. Since we don't have a show between now and Saturday, we'll ask Larry a little bit about his outgoing seniors, Parker Van Dyke, Cedric Bearfield, Bo Rydalch, and Novak Topalovic. We'll do that when we come back on the Coaches Show from Learfield, IMG College. Final Coaches Show of 2018-19. Our 8th year together on the Coaches Show, and every year on the last Coaches Show we talk about Senior Day And every senior class, like every season and every senior day, is a little bit different. Sometimes you get a bunch of guys that all came in together. You had that a few years ago when you had Dakari and Brandon and Jordan and those guys.
It's always different.
And then this year, it's an interesting class because only really one guy did you recruit in as as kind of a guy that was going to be a player for you. That was Parker Van Dyke. Bo Rydalch is a legacy and a walk-on.
Yeah.
And then you had Cedric, who was a transfer in a few years, but it was early in his career. And then you've got Novak, who's a graduate transfer. So this is a very unique senior class for you guys, but your senior class nonetheless. Let's start with Parker, because he was the guy that many years ago, you probably started recruiting him first when you guys first got here. He would have been a sophomore or junior in high school at East High School.
At East, yeah. I've watched Parker play a lot of games, high school and AAU. The thing I think about him that's really unique is he used to sit in those seats, with Grandpa and watch games, and probably dreamed since a young kid that he was going to be a Ute. And that's the thing you think about that, and now here he is in senior night, and he spoke today with our team and talked about how it was his last week and different things. So gives everybody kind of a sense of how time flies, and that's 6 years.
Yeah.
He played his first year and then had a mission for 2 years and came back here. So it's a long process, and it's all coming to a head for him. He's grown, in so many ways. He's been a great leader, and he's just got that Ute DNA, that's deep in him. And once a Ute, always a Ute, but that's just a little longer process for him that's kind of coming to a head.
He's undergone a physical transformation. You've seen, if we went back.
I saw him today in the weight room, like he was done doing right before practice, his pull-ups, and it's like, dang, he's, he looks the part. So, that before and after picture physically, but from a maturity point of view, he's just, he's an old soul, and he's beyond his years. He's going to do great, whatever it is he's going to do. And he's trying his hand in the media stuff. We took him to the Pac-12 networks when we were in San Francisco, and next thing you know, he's, doing his thing. So you never know where this leads you.
It's exactly right. And it's funny, you say once a Ute, always a Ute. His family are Utes. He grew up a stone's throw, went to East High School. And I remember when he was on a mission, his mom and dad were still out there. His mom and dad were in New York with us.
Yeah.
When we were back in New York, he wasn't back from his mission just yet. And I remember seeing his mom and dad. They couldn't have been more excited for him to get back to play Utah basketball. And they've been on the road with us all year this year, enjoying the ride. It's been a lot of fun with Parker.
It has been. It has been, and hopefully we got, more minutes in us. We can extend this thing as long as possible. So it's pretty cool.
Speaking of guys with Utah in their blood, Bo Rydalch grew up through and through. He's a legacy. His dad, Craig, his uncle, Mark, who are friends of mine, played here at the University of Utah as well. And, Bo's part of that bomb squad. And Bo's one of those guys that, you've gotten him a few minutes here and there, and he's gotten some mop-up minutes, but he's one of those guys that, he could have probably gone to a smaller school and played a lot of basketball, but he wanted to be a Ute. It's in his blood. It's in his family legacy, and he's come and laid it out on the floor for the last 3-4 years for you every single day without a lot of accolades.
He plays so hard.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the Gibson baseball player that played hard.
Kurt Gibson.
Yeah. Injured a little bit.
Yeah.
He took a charge today in practice and head slammed into the floor, and he had some minutes. I forget which game it was, 3 or 4 games ago, where he came in and played his butt off. And is that Washington?
I think it was at the Washington
game. Yeah, he
game.
came in, and it's amazing what happens when you just play hard.
Yeah.
And that's the epitome of Bo, really, when you think about it. And he's a good player. He defensively, and sometimes he shoots a little too much in practice, but he's a confident kid, and he's one of our captains. Our players voted him captain, leadership, and a great example of it. And don't be surprised if you see Bo going down the stretch playing some of these games, as we talk about. If you're going to accomplish some things, you can't do it with a real thin rotation in Vegas. I know that,
right? And
get through it. So. Bo gives you every reason to play him in terms of his effort and playing hard.
And something that you guys don't see, because I get to go to shoot around, I get to go to practice. You want a guy that plays hard, But you want a guy that knows what he's supposed to do when he's out there, too. I can't tell you how many times I've stood over here on the sideline watching practice, and Bo will be saying something about where these guys are supposed to be on the floor. Larry or Tommy or Andy will stop practice and say, so-and-so, you weren't there. And Bo pipes up without even being prompted saying, you've got to be over here. This is where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
So it's always nice when you put a guy in the game that they know where they're supposed to be, too, and what they're supposed to do.
He does. And he pays attention. It's not easy for him because he plays the 3 and the 4.
Yeah.
So that's
undersized.
2 completely different things in terms of that's double what you need to remember, at least in our roster. And he's doing a great job with the scout team, dialed in and attention to detail. So, yeah, I just think about that. Those guys, Utes, and that makes it sad. Every class is always different.
Right.
Now we got 2 guys with a lot of that Ute fiber in them that, I've always wanted to be here. And then you've got Cedric Bearfield, who after transferring from SMU spoke to us, proved to us that, hey, I want to be a part of this. And he's grown tremendously. And then a 1-year guy, Novak Topolovich, who's his mileage and trials and everything that he's gone through Serbia and to come to America and play, and that's all coming to a head for him too. So, 4 completely different roadmaps here for these kids.
And Cedric too passed the 1,000-point mark a couple of weeks ago. Pretty good for a guy that's only really been here 2.5 years. A lot of those guys that are 1,000-point scorers are 3 or 4 year players.
Right.
He's really been 2.5 years for you.
No, he's been tremendous. Scoring the ball, and he's got. Distributing, his ability to distribute when he does that. We saw some of that in our film today, when it looks good and when it doesn't, and him getting in a straight line. And sometimes it's not about getting a shot up, but just to draw one guy, because Lord knows he's getting enough attention. And then he's grown in his work ethic and getting ready for practice, and he's seen a correlation with, okay, I really got to, I got to put a lot of time. And sometimes it takes a while for kids to figure out how hard you have to practice if you want to be a player.
And he's a kid that loves playing basketball. He's just kind of a gym rat.
Yeah.
He just loves having the ball in his hand and being around basketball.
Yeah, and one of the coolest things about all 4 of these guys is that they just have an infectious smile.
Yeah.
All of them are really engaging, and it's like, when you see them smile, it's cool.
And Topolovich, the last senior on senior day, he's your graduate transfer. He's a goofball. I mean, this guy is really and truly a goofball who has thoroughly enjoyed. I've talked to Novak about this. He was an exchange student from Serbia in high school. I mean, he never went back. He saw some some college coaches saw him playing when he was in high school in Southern California, and he loved America and wanted to stay here, whether it was Pocatello, Idaho, or now here in Salt Lake City.
Right.
He's a kid that's enjoyed his ride being over here from Europe.
Yeah, and I think from the point that he was in high school, Novak at Idaho State continued to make improvement, and chose to spend a year with us here. And I think the area back to the basket, he's doing a good job scoring the ball, but the area that he's been deficient in is on his defense. And then that's the area that he's got to learn, and he's learning it. And we still think he's going to have an impact for us going down the stretch, but it's got to do a better job of being a rim protector and standing his ground.
All right, we'll take a time out here on the Coaches Show. We'll come back, kind of talk big picture conference stuff. Larry and I were talking a little bit about the craziness that is, how that might transfer over and into Vegas in a week or so as well. Don't forget Thursday night's the game at 8 o'clock against USC, and then Saturday's the final regular season game in Senior Day for those seniors we were just talking about at UCLA at 5. We'll have both those on our flagship radio home, ESPN 700. This is the Coaches Show, presented by Smiths from Learfield, IMG College. Yeah, when it comes to degree of difficulty shots, Booth Gotch hits a lot of those, either late in the shot clock or sometimes like that one against Colorado on the baseline. We welcome you back into the Coaches Show tonight. Larry and I talking Pac-12 and Utah basketball, final games of the regular season coming up. And as we said at the top of the show, outside of Washington and Arizona State and Cal at the bottom.
And Washington State.
The middle 8 teams, everybody's in play right now for some sort of seeding adjustment. You guys are in the, I guess, enviable position of controlling your destiny. Mm-hmm. If you take care of business, you know you'll be a 3 or a 4 seed, and nobody can do anything about that. Some of the other teams need some help.
Yeah, I didn't realize that if we won them both, we'd be a 4 seed for sure, but that's good to know.
You could be as good as a 3 seed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're going to be guaranteed if you win them both, you're going to be guaranteed a bye. So that's nice to know.
No, it's great. It's it's motivation certainly, but we shouldn't need that kind of motivation. But we just got to get an edge to us, And so it'd be fantastic if we can get that accomplished and finish in the top 4 in the conference and get ready for Vegas.
What's been your big picture takeaway of this league this year? You've seen everybody now. You've played everybody at least once, some of them twice. Mm-hmm. It maybe hasn't been as dominant a league, maybe at the top, as you've had in some years where there have been really 2 or 3 or 4 ranked teams. There's been one at times and sometimes none ranked. But what's been your view of the league overall this year?
Well, when you're in the middle of it, it's extremely challenging. And I think to start with, of the Power 5 conferences, we were by far the youngest of all of them, and we were by far the one that was hit with the most injuries and transfers and different things that took place to some guys. I think about Bol at Oregon.
Yeah.
Was one of the elite players. And I know with a lot of young players that what's happened, and you can see it on multiple teams, Colorado comes to mind, UCLA's getting it figured out, a freshman loaded team. So it's really not uncommon for everybody to be playing their best basketball right now, and I think our league is so much better right now than it would have been back in November, and unfortunately that's when we were being marked and rated. But I know our league is growing, and I watch a bunch of games on TV, and we've got a bunch of competitive teams, but unfortunately I don't think we're getting the national love, and we'll control what we can control. That's our focus. Is we can only focus on so much, and we're worried about our program and getting better, and we can't really get caught up in what the perception is of our league.
Media guys like me get to vote on a preseason poll, but you guys, the coaches, vote on the players of the year and things like that. Of the guys you've seen this year, who's been a player that's really impressed you? Or maybe the guy that's impressed you the most, that you've scouted, that you've watched tape on, that you really are impressed by their game this year?
Well, I hesitate to mention anybody because you're going to forget somebody.
Sure.
But I just told McKinley Wright when I saw him after the game, I mean, that kid's a warrior.
Yeah.
His shoulder has popped out numerous times this year.
He's having surgery after the year on that shoulder.
And he's playing through a lot of pain, and he's doing it real. That's a player that comes to mind has been, man, that kid really gets it, But there's talent. Jalen Hands, who we're going to play. Boatwright has been on fire from USC. You can go down the list with a lot of teams and come up with some. I usually turn some of that voting over to our staff and then get a chance to take a last look at it, so I don't get caught up in too much of it. But I think there's a bunch of talented players. I know when you're in the middle of it and you're going playing somewhere, I know you better be ready for Franks at Washington State. Somebody that can get 40. So there's players at this level certainly that are really good players.
Yeah, I agree with you on McKinley Wright. Another guy that I because we've seen him now for 3 years, Trace Tinkle's having a fantastic, and it helps that he's healthy. He hasn't missed as many games this year. He's been really good. I've really been impressed with Matisse Thybulle this year, too, from Washington. He was really good a year ago, but his shot's a little bit better. You could kind of sink off him. You didn't worry about him shooting that 3. Now he's pretty good, but his defense, which has always been good, almost feels like it's gone up a notch, too.
Yeah, it's crazy watching, his instincts. There's certain things you can't coach, and like DeLon had certain instincts that you just go, wow, you just kind of get that. And that's the way Thybulle is. And ultra athletic and 6'7" and long and has all those things. And there's just not much trick in him. You
Right.
know, he's smart and really plays well in that zone.
And he's a third-year player too, and you
Yeah.
can see that. All those things you mentioned, he had a lot of those things when he was a freshman. But now what he has to go with it is experience, and you know this.
Confidence.
From confidence and experience, there's no substitution for him because there's nothing he hasn't seen. Same thing when you had DeLon as a senior.
Yeah.
His JUCO and then his 2 years of Pac-12 experience. You didn't have to worry about him out on the floor, and I don't think Mike Hopkins probably does with Matisse Thybulle either.
No, and it's just a testament for kind of trusting the process. We always talk about that in our program, and I think really good players, when you start talking about them when they're seniors, if you look back in time, they've probably had a lot of reps.
Yep.
And there's value to playing as a freshman, or in DeLon's case, JUCO, and playing. So I like the fact we're playing 3 freshmen a lot of minutes, and we've got 2 other freshmen that haven't played this year. So the future's good when we can keep those guys in our program. And Donnie's a sophomore, and some of that, Jace will be back. So we could have a team that's, unlike the last couple of years where you go, man, you're going to lose 4 starters. We won't have that situation here for a minute.
Back with our final thoughts on the Coaches Show next. This is Learfield IMG College. Goofy and Doc. Back on the Coaches Show, presented by Smith's, our final segment of the season. I want to say a couple of thank yous before we get out of here. The folks behind the scenes that make this thing happen every week, Dan and Jordan and Lauren and Porter and JP back at the studio. Thank you guys. They're the ones that help get the video and the audio and get this thing all set up all year long. So yes, And I want to thank Tommy and Andy and Slokes, who have pinch hit for you a couple of times when you've gone out on the recruiting trail as well, and some of the guys that have come by as well. And thanks to you. This is a fun show. I look forward to doing this show every week, and if you weren't having fun and enjoying it and dialed in, it wouldn't be as much fun to do. So thank you for
right
8
back
good
at you.
seasons, partner.
Right back at you, Riles. Appreciate you.
So we're going to hopefully have a
easy.
lot more basketball this year. Give us a quick thought on SC and what you guys have to do on Thursday night.
Yeah, man, we got to do a lot of things. It's just putting it all together right now. We got to get back on transition when you're supposed to. Got to rebound when you're supposed to. It's just all the little things that everybody knows right now, and let's just get after it and scrap.
And to quote the great one here, there are no little things. So if they don't do those things, there will not be victories. Thank you guys for watching and listening all year long. We'll see you Thursday night, then again on Saturday. This is Utah basketball from Learfield, IMG College. Good night.